Making an episode of a live-action show is a lot like baking a pie. To make a good one requires equal parts hard work, time, and love. If you succeed, you'll create something great to be enjoyed by everyone. But if you are missing even one of the key ingredients,
you will fail, and it will burn,
leaving a lingering scent. My name is PIEGUYRULZ, and I'm here at the bottom of the bakery to smell that pie. Metaphorically speaking, of course. In reality, I'm here to talk to you guys about an episode of a Schneider's Bakery show that was really not good. Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and Henry freaking Danger. This show has been quite the headache to find an episode to talk about here on the bottom of the bakery. In fact, I had to watch the entire series and several episodes twice. Now you might be thinking, oh, but Pie Guy, isn't the show bad in general? Wouldn't most episodes fit on the bottom of the bakery? Well, yes. Most episodes are bad enough to fit on the bottom of the bakery. The issue is finding an episode that is bad in an interesting enough way that I can make a video out of. See, most of this show is just very, very dull. It's very poorly paced and poorly plotted, and several of the characters are just inherently annoying. There was no episodes that I saw that featured any sort of major horribleness, like the way they treat Freddy in I Meet Fred, or how they treat Griffin in I Date a Bad Boy. No, I had to find an episode that really shows off how poorly this show is paced out. The episode I decided to go with, Kid Grounded, is not the worst episode of the show, but it is an episode that has very obvious problems and is very representative of the average Henry Danger episode. And because a lot of episodes have similar problems to this one, I probably won't be covering another Henry Danger episode on here for a little while. I'm sure, like with most of these shows, once it goes into the second, third, fourth, fifth, however many seasons it goes on for, it will get a lot worse. If I had to guess, it's probably going to abandon the superhero thing, only making casual references to it, and just going off and doing its own really stupid, bizarre things. This episode, and really the show in general, is like a lump of hyper-vegan, hypoallergenic, gluten-free soy paste. Can't you just smell that blandness? It's almost like there's nothing in it of substance at all. So the basic premise of this episode is that Henry is caught by Piper sneaking in at 1 in the morning after doing some heroic things with Captain Man. Piper squeals on him, and he in return squeals on something Piper did, getting them both grounded. Because Henry is grounded, he can't be a superhero, which prompts Charlotte to fill in for him. Henry gets jealous and thinks that Charlotte is trying to take his job. Meanwhile, Henry's parents are trying to get on some sort of website by having an interview with two snobby people. Henry and Piper's arguing insults the people and makes them leave. Meanwhile, Jasper is trying to make life hack videos. And that's pretty much it. These plot lines are interwoven about as poorly as they possibly can be, but I first have to start with the biggest logical flaw in this episode. Henry is grounded, therefore, his parents are somehow not allowing him to go to work. Remember, they don't know he's a superhero. They think he works at junk and stuff, meaning his parents effectively grounded him from going to his job. What kind of parents would ground a kid from going to his job? In the real world, you would get fired for this kind of behavior. Going to a job is probably even more punishment than having to stay home anyway. The whole point of being grounded is that it's not supposed to be fun, not that you're just literally supposed to be in your house all the time. It makes no sense why they wouldn't let him go to work. It's not like Henry's parents even called Ray and said, hey, listen, we know Henry has a job, but is it alright if he misses because he's grounded, and we know he has fun over there, and we don't want that, or something. But nope, none of that. Henry just tells Ray, yeah, no, I can't come to work because I'm grounded. And to further add to the stupidity, Henry's parents allow his friends to come visit him while he's grounded. So, going to a job is not okay, but allowing his friends to come over is. Granted, when one of your friends is Jasper, that's pretty much a punishment anyway, but even still, it's just so stupid. And I understand that a lot of stuff on this show is very tongue-in-cheek, it's very silly and cheesy, but this is a major plot point. The entire plot revolves around the fact that Henry is grounded. You would think they would have thought this through just a little bit more and given some sort of explanation as to why grounding means he's not allowed to go to work, unless they just forgot that his cover was that he works a job there. And speaking of Jasper, holy cow, is Jasper annoying on this show. In my review of Henry Danger, I called him Josh Gibby because that's basically what he is. I called him Jasper now just so we're all clear that I'm talking about Jasper, but going forward, I'm going to call him Joshy just to make things super simple. And you know what the big problem with Joshy is? It's the fact that they put him in every single episode. His role on the show is to be the friend that doesn't know that Henry is Kid Danger. And in some episodes, this is used decently well, causing drama by Henry trying to disguise who he is as Kid Danger, and having Joshy occasionally get mixed up in the bad guy's plot or whatever. And that works out just fine and dandy, but not every episode can do that. There are a lot of episodes where Joshy comes in, does something completely random that doesn't have to do with really anything else in the episode, and then leaves. And that's what he does in this episode. He pops over, says he wants to make life hack videos, they do a skit where Henry and him are making a life hack of how to make toothpaste out of a bunch of random things, where of course it doesn't pan out in his favor. He leaves, and then he comes back walking dogs with bras as his second life hack, and then he chases away the people that were interviewing Henry's parents when they come back for the second time, and that's it. That's all he does. He did not need to be in this episode, as he really doesn't relate to anything. His whole shtick of being awkward and weird and doing strange things just doesn't work. It doesn't work partially because I've already seen it be done really well with Josh and partially Gibby on iCarly, and at this point it really just feels like a pale imitation. And no, that wasn't an intentional pun on the fact that he likes buckets. He doesn't serve much of a purpose in a lot of episodes, and when you don't find him funny, like I don't, his scenes just drag on and are agonizingly awkward, and it only lasts for about 3 minutes of the entire runtime. It just has nothing to do with anything. Maybe if it had something thematically to do with Henry being grounded, like he wants to make these life hack videos, but he can't because Henry's grounded, and he's actually not allowed to come over, and so him and Henry have to find a sneaky way to do this, or Henry has a motivation for wanting to make life hack videos for his own selfish gain or something, but no. And speaking of scenes that don't amount to anything, Henry's parents and this weird website. The end result of this is the parents just kinda going, oh well, I guess we didn't get it, and then the scene cuts away. The thing about this subplot, if you want to call it that, is that it doesn't really amount to anything. There isn't really much of a story to be told. It's just these two people that are acting all prissy that just kind of pop up out of nowhere in the middle of the episode, while Henry's parents try to impress them, and then that's about it. And when his parents tell Henry what this is all about, how they're interviewing to be a part of the website, Henry doesn't really care, which I don't blame him, because I don't care either. Henry also doesn't care about the life hack videos. Our main character does not give a crap about either of the two subplots that just pop in and pop out of the episode. And that happens a lot on this show. Subplots just come and go out of nowhere. They're not really tied to the rest of the episode. They don't really have much of a clear beginning, middle, or ending, or any sort of arcs. They're just random little bits of comedy, quote unquote, that have nothing to do with anything. I know it's a comedy show, and I know I'd be singing a different tune if these parts were actually legitimately funny, but even if you're going for comedy, since this is a 22-minute show, you should at the very least make sure these set pieces really fit in with everything else that's going on in the episode. So the main plot is about how Henry is worried that Charlotte is taking his job. After Henry gets grounded, most of this thing is just Henry and Piper arguing. It's not really like a conflict like they're arguing over one specific thing, it's just them loudly bickering over each other. Until 15 minutes in, when finally the actual conflict kicks in, where Charlotte comes in and Henry thinks she's trying to take his job. You heard me, 15 minutes in for this to be established. Mind you, it only takes about 3 or 4 minutes later for this to be resolved. It tries to set up early on that Charlotte's replacing him, but it's really only hinted hinted at and then forgotten about for the next, 13 minutes. This is exactly why the pacing is so poor. They introduce things and then resolve them right away instead of having some sort of gradual build-up with a beginning, middle, and end. In the beginning, you think that the story might be about how Henry and Piper have to get along and work out their issues, but nope, we don't see that at all. We just see them arguing. Henry's mom's like, alright, well, I'll reduce your grounding sentence if you guys get along. And then we see a scene of them just faking getting along. There's no sort of bonding or character growth or arc or anything. It's just fighting 1 minute and then pretending to be nice to each other but still fighting the next. And let's talk about the specific scene where Henry accuses Charlotte of taking his job. The scene plays out like this. First, Charlotte tells him that she went on patrol in the helicopter with Captain Man. Henry gets all jealous and is like, oh, I never thought you'd try to take my job. Charlotte's like, no, I wasn't doing that. Captain Man just asked me to do it as a favor, and I'm filling in while you're not there. I wouldn't actually try to take your job. I have no intention of it. Then Henry's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, you wouldn't do that. Actually, you couldn't do that because you are a girl. Yup, Henry decided to be sexist. How old is Henry supposed to be? He's what, 12, 13, 14? They're definitely in high school, or at least in older middle school. Why is Henry still in the boys are better than girls phase? For most kids, that's like kindergarten through 3rd grade stuff. And not only that, but Henry is saying this directly to her face, and then gets all flustered when she leaves. Like, Henry, how stupid are you? You say this point blank to her face. You are insulting her. Even if this is something you believe to be true, obviously this is gonna hurt your friend's feelings. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Charlotte actually brought Henry some yogurt from a yogurt place, just to show how much of a good friend she is in comparison to Henry, who's acting horrible towards her. The thing is, Henry never at any other point seemed to have this sort of sexism or elitism card going for him. It feels like a totally fabricated trait given to Henry just for these few minutes, just so that this plot can actually happen. It does not feel like a natural thing in the slightest. So Charlotte leaves by saying she wasn't trying to take his job before, but maybe she will now. About 4 minutes later, and Henry gets ungrounded and goes down to the man cave. Charlotte and Ray are just getting back from a mission that involved something about a pig pen, so Charlotte ended up getting covered in mud. Ray tells Henry that Charlotte wasn't trying to take his job and that she did a good job out in the field. Henry's just like, oh, okay, well, I guess you can do my job. And Charlotte's like, oh, well, I don't want to because it'll make me all disgusting because of pig goop and evildoers and such. So, problem solved. It really didn't take much at all to change Henry's mind. Did they address the fact that he's probably still sexist? No, I guess Charlotte doing this one thing just totally changed his mind. Or maybe this was a trait invented for this episode only, and only as a plot device to actually make something happen in this episode. This should have been a conflict that was building the entire episode. Henry and Charlotte should have been fighting from the get-go, and it should have actually looked like Charlotte was going to take Henry's job. We didn't need any of this sexism thing, just have Henry be afraid that Charlotte is taking over. And have Charlotte actually like fighting crime for a little while. It's really not that complicated to tell this kind of story. It's very, very sad how they managed to just completely screw this up. You know, a lot of these scripts could use a second looking over. It feels like these are rough drafts that could very easily be tweaked to be much better and more coherent stories. Oh, and by the way, this episode definitely makes it feel like Henry isn't special or important in any way. He could have literally been anybody in the first episode. He has literally no special abilities, no special training, and there is nothing particularly special about him in any aspect of anything. One thing the show really fails at is telling me why Henry deserves to be a hero. So there you have it, Kid Grounded. A bunch of subplots that are introduced out of nowhere and go completely nowhere. It involves Piper being very annoying, Joshy doing something stupid, Henry being sexist, and to just round everything out, tons and tons of filler. But that's really no surprise at this point. I will say one nice thing about the episode though. There is one very subtle joke that I think actually works. Ray is talking about not wanting to accidentally harm pigs, and Schwaz, while eating ribs, says, "Oh yes, we wouldn't want to have something happen to the pigs." The joke is funny because very early on they order some pork ribs, meaning those ribs that he was eating were probably pork ribs, meaning he was harming the pigs while saying that ironically. It's a nice joke because it doesn't beat you over the head with it. Also, I have to say Schwoz is definitely my favorite character on the show. I didn't really talk about him much in my review because he appears a lot more in the episodes later in the season, and I hadn't really gotten to the really late ones when I was making the video. But yeah, of all the characters, I think he's pretty likable and can actually have a few funny moments. Oh, right, let's check on the paste. Wow, it literally didn't change at all. That's super uninteresting and very unsatisfying. Well, I guess that's bound to happen with regurgitated, overly processed crap. PIEGUYRULZ, out.